Well, it's come to that point. We're gonna stitch this thing. I got the edges all touched up with dye. Holes are all punched and ready to rock and roll. I got my needles locked onto the thread. So let's get to stitching. I'm gonna start at this end. I think I might have to get my awl out. That's the thing about leather. If you punch your stitch holes with the chisel or an awl, instead of drilling them, the leather tends to close up, which is what it did on here. The holes closed up, so I'm going to go through and run it all through my holes to open them up a little bit so I can get to stitching. We'll be right back. Okay, I've started my stitch line. Starting at this end, working my way back. And what I'm doing is I'm putting the needle in. Second needle goes on top. And then the second needle goes on top of the first stitch. And if I could do this without being clumsy, I'm doing pretty good. There we go. Needle goes in, second one on top, second needle on top of the first stitch. Give it a little tug, make sure I didn't pierce the thread, and I didn't. And pull that on through. Now that gives me a consistent stitch line by doing it that exact same way all the way down the stitch line. And one of the characteristics about the leather and the way it closes up, if you punch the holes in it like I did and then leave it sit, like in my case, I punched the holes, beveled the edges, and then I touched up the edges, and then I left it sit for the dye to dry. Oh, look at there, I pierced this thread, but that's okay. I fixed it before it became a problem. That's why you check on each and every stitch to make sure you didn't pierce the thread. Anyway, like I was saying, I let the dye dry. I let that sit overnight. Yeah, that's good. And while I did that, the stitch holes closed up. And that's actually what I want it to do. After I stitch it, the stitch holes will close up and they'll actually grip the thread. Because when you punch the stitch holes with a chisel, it doesn't produce a hole. It takes and it pushes the fibers apart. And then the fibers want to go back to their original orientation and they come back together. And that's a characteristic that I like. Because like I said, it makes for a stronger stitch line where the leather is actually gripping the thread. Well, I'm going to keep this up for a while, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm almost to the end here. I got a couple more to do, and then we're going to go ahead and start on our back stitch, which is no big deal. It's basically you just stitch the other way. Okay, that's the last hole on this line. And like I said, you just stitch backwards. Come back that way. Basically do the same thing, except the second stitch, or the second needle, goes under the first stitch. That puts the stitch or the thread at the same angle that it was at on the way out. Because yeah, you want it to look good. Oof. And it's very stiff because not only is it a bit more difficult to stitch through a welt, but that hole's already got thread in it. So I keep these handy in case I need them. smooth jawed, flat nose pliers. Okay, one more time through, and that will be fine. How many do I go back? Oh, a few. Usually 3 or 4. Sometimes it depends on the application. Sometimes it depends on the aesthetics. Okay, take my scissors. Cut that off, and I leave about, don't know if y'all can see that, about that much. Take the lighter and burn it down. And there's our stitch line. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, and then it's on to burnishing those edges. Okay, we'll see y'all next time.